All right. Yesterday I went looking for the manual for conversion for this unit. Actually, not for this unit, but for the AM unit. Wondering what was going on. What were they trying to do? And it seems that in the early 50s, people took the AM broadcast band command radio and turned it into a hi-fi AM tuner. All right. And the reason was back in the 50s, FM hadn't taken hold yet. There was no stereo. So you had a wide AM broadcast receiver. And it would get high fidelity, except for lightning noise, and that AM broadcast at one time was high fidelity. So they would take one of these units and make it into a tuner and hook it into their amplifier, which also took their record changer. Okay, now it was a big deal to have a home, not stereo unit, a home record player unit, nice console. And people would build their own cabinets. This is back in the days when people built everything. Now, later, as the 50s went along, there were still people using hi-fi AM, but then FM came along. So you could receive the same information or station on both AM and FM. And one would be the right channel and one would be the left channel. So you put on both an FM radio and an AM radio for certain stereo broadcasts. Okay? And the FCC didn't like that. So they said, look, you got to come up with a different way. And that's when they came up with a multiplexer FM. Okay? It got both the right and left channel, and at the same time it still worked as an FM radio. Very slick. If you look up how stereo works. Well, anyway, they took these command radios for like $9.95. They added a supply to it. And there were these manuals that told you how to convert. And the manual it gives you a list of stuff you have to gut out of the radio. They don't give you any clue what the person did. They show you the final wiring diagram. And they tell you take one tube out and you put a new tube in, you use that as a power amplifier. You have to move a bunch of wires around. So right now I'm in the middle of a project, the worst possible part of the project, and I'm realizing there's different command radios. They're the same radio, but they're made by different manufacturers. So this shock absorber, okay, has a press-fitted ring. This is a threaded nut, and it gets press-fitted into here. And some type of lip. I don't know where this lip comes from, but I ground it away. I got this part out. And over here on a different manufacturer, look how nice that hole is. So you know both halves came apart real easy for the guy. Now, also on that unit here, I took off this ring. All right. Now this ring held the mica disc with the 3 connections for the dynamo. Here it is here. Okay, now I can work on the other side and fold over the lip on the back side and get this out and salvage it. But I'm at that part of the project like it's unbelievable. And to see what people have done to these poor things. Now here's that one that had the power supply. See, there was no real directions in the article. The booklet is pretty thick. Say it's 70 pages. It does several different conversions of different radios, not just for AM tuner, but for different bands. See, the first thing you do is you buy the receiver and you gut it so it does another band. And then you take the BFO out. I went through this. The BFO, the audio output transformer you take out and you change that. And also there's an RF choke there for the dyno motor. You don't need that anymore. So they gut the crap out of the radio. And you got to run a bunch of all new wires in there, okay? Now in this case, this was an AM tuner, okay? And the person, that's the way they built it, okay? And it did have the jack on the back, so I'm most likely he did finish it. But that's why they destroyed these radios, because they, at that time, I guess an AM tuner for high fidelity was big money. So you could take a World War II surplus unit It was wide enough. It was good enough. It was a little. It actually this unit is actually better than most AM radios of the time. The shortwave radios were great, but they were bigger in size. This would fit nicely after you put the your bodged power supply, and this matches the picture. This does match the picture, but they didn't tell the person to build it on a plate and then mount it above and run your wires through the holes. Instead, the guy cut everything away. You know, it's amazing. But I'm right at that point now where, you know, in a project where I'm sorry I ever touched it. Okay. Besides having two different manufacturers, 3 units complete total. This unit, in order to get the parts off this one's made differently than the other 2 are. Okay, so it's a different company that made this one. You know, they look identical, and they function identical. In other words, you could put this dynamotor of any type right down on this. It's a standard, but how they press fitted this. Now those little things that made this little mark here, I can file that off, and I can turn this back into what I should have. But I have to drill out this rivet here on the back in order to get this apart, to dig out all that rubber in there and then replace it with either a grommet or something like that, or silicon caulking. But you know, I'm going for it because I don't want a command radio that doesn't look like a command radio. I want it to be as close to real as I can. All right, where the people that buy these things, they just want it to work for what they're doing to it. I actually I really want an AM command radio that's original, but they're too expensive on eBay. And I know why now. I found out that they use them for AM tuners. And you laugh at that, but that's how it evolved. In the 50s, my dad got an old shortwave radio console cabinet with a 78 changer in it. And some guy at work gave it to him. He brought it home. It was in mint shape. And he gutted it, and he put his AM tuner in there, and his FM tuner, and his amplifier that he built, and 2 speakers. And we would, certain nights, certain stations would be transmitting both on the FM band and the AM band. It's called a simulcast. They did television like that a few times. I remember seeing Walt Disney's Sword in the Stone, I believe it was. And you put your television on for the left channel, and you put an AM radio on in the room on another station. And at a certain time, it would come on, and it would be the Disney Wonderful World of Color, or whatever it was at the time. And they'd show a preview for a half hour of how the Sword in the Stone was drawn. It's a comic. Yeah, it's a cartoon, Sword in the Stone, and special effects. And well, anyway, they show you that, and it turned out they got in trouble. The FCC said that's basically a commercial for a half hour, and you can't do that. Nowadays, you can do that, but you couldn't do that in the old days. But I remember that my dad would read in the paper, and then he would go, "Oh, he get the." I actually remember the radio he used. It was a kitchen radio for the right channel, and the television set for the left channel. We sat there on the sofa between the 2 speakers, and they showed us the Sword. So of course the television set was off to the left. It wasn't in the middle. Okay, so the stereo effect, it was there, and of course the announcer makes sure he talks out of both right, and they do like a test. This is the right channel. This is left. You know, they really want to tell you what the future's coming. You're going to have a stereo television at some point, and Disney's leading the way, and the whole thing. It's a half-hour commercial, and then they show you some of the movie, like previews, and then that was it. And you know, that was a big thing as a kid, you know, hearing stereo. And then right after that, they went with multiplexing. And my uncle worked at Admiral at the time, and he got my father a module for a stereo. It's in those home stereo units. You know, you undo a few screws, and the whole amplifiers, tuner, and all that comes out. And my dad put that in his second cabinet that they bought at EJ Corvettes. It was like $69. It was this big, long cabinet. for the living room, and it was made out of back in those days. Was it particle board? Or is it pressed wood? I think it was pressed wood, and it warped. It was just funny. We had that for years, and we had the record player in there, and you put music on. My parents always had music on in the house. Uh, that's why I'm a big radio fan. There was always one playing in the background. But I just wanted to show you what you could run into touching one of these things. And I know most people buy a command radio without realizing there's no power supply. Uh, you just can't hook it to a speaker. Okay, the speaker has to have a transformer, or you have to take out the transformer in the radio and change it to a different type. And you also have to redo the capacitors. I've shown you that before. Hopefully it's, yeah. These capacitors go bad, as you can see. Okay, these go bad. And you grind the tops off. I showed you how to do that. You grind this little thin band here. You go around with a Dremel tool. I've been using the Dremel this morning. That's it. You got the drum on there. Okay? And you go around just on the tip. And all of a sudden the ring falls off. You can pry this mica disc out. And then you can heat it with a heat gun or a hair dryer. And the beeswax runs out. You gut it. And you put in disc capacitors or any type of capacitor that is rated for the voltage. And you rebuild these and put them back in. So the radio looks original. That's what I'm into. Now I realized after I started taking this one, this is complete. Had a bunch of wires cut. Someone had started working on this thing and then realized they were in over their head. And it ended up on e-dumpster. Okay, so I'm dealing with a lot of bad crap here. And I'm trying to dig my way out. And, I wasn't sure. I was pretty sure it was a rolled over ring with the mica disc in there with the 3 connections. And I can fabricate any of that stuff. All right, I'm pretty good. It's like this. I'm pretty sure I can fix this. It's sad. The rubber actually dried out and fell out as powder. But that's what you get unless you spend more money. And that's my problem. In my life, I've always gone cheap. Okay? I'm always conservative. And I'm not a conservative person. That's what makes me a good bipartisan person, because I can see both sides. But when it comes to spending money, I'd rather do the work because it keeps me busy. And it's also some type of psychological excuse of some sort. Like most people, like, why do you want an AM radio? Well, I got the other radios, and this is how I kind of treat them. And I just wanted to complete the set. All right. And it's an AM broadcast band, and they're very rare on eBay, and they go for real big money, and a lot of them are in really great shape because the person never gutted it to turn it into an AM tuner. Okay, they bought it maybe to have a complete set or whatever reason, but yeah, this ring is press fitted in there. This is a threaded ring, and you don't need it press fitted, but if you press fit that in, think about how much, as it goes down the line, how much faster it is to assemble it. Where the other companies, nice hole. Look out, there's no scratch marks or nothing. I'm like, as I'm grinding this out, I'm like, this, and then it hit me. They're different manufacturers. And you can basically, when you're working on them, you realize there's slight differences. And the part will sort of fit the other one. Okay, you might have to make the hole a little bigger. And it's interesting. I found them interesting because I didn't know they existed. Up until, 2 years ago, I bought my first one. I've been around radios a lot, fixed a lot of radios, pulled a lot of radios out of the garbage and repaired them. And they either gave them away or scrapped them. And I had never seen a command radio. And it's just the way it is, what you're exposed to. But, like I said, when I think I saw these things at the ham flea markets, I already had an ICOM R71A, and it was transistorized and ICs, and I was a tube guy, but I kept moving forward. But at some point, you become nostalgic for radios, older radios, and then the R71A is so old now, it's easier to fix a tube radio than that thing. All right, Yeah. Oh, it works really good. It's got a computer, and yeah, it's got a computer that's like on two different boards. It's not really a real computer. It's more of a controller. And yes, it can be programmed, but it's not like you could put DOS into it type of computer. But and it's actually got some noises in it from the display. That as the capacitors go bad on the display, you start getting these whining noises and birds all up and down the band. It has a few, not the processor, the mixer in that thing has a little bit of noise, and it's an old tube radio like a Collins is par with the R71A. When both of them are working perfectly, they're equal, okay? And then you can say, well, I like the sound of the tube radio and the way it mixes, and yes, there is a slight difference. But when you're copying code with a bunch of atmospheric noise, both radios will do it for you, But yeah, I just want to show you and warn you. I'm at that point now where I'm like, why did I buy this? But I have to have something to stay busy. And yesterday was like 60 degrees, almost got to 70, and then the cold front came. And it's not real cold out there, but it's windy. All the leaves now are coming down. I won't say all at the same time because they've been torturing me for over a month. But the leaves are finally coming down. And yesterday I went out with my tool, my gutter sense, and I cleaned my gutters again because it was going to rain. So every time it's going to rain, I have to go out and clean my gutters because the leaves have been coming down for over a month. And it's pretty funny stuff. But I just wanted to show you, because I've seen some of these videos for the command radios, and they'll cause you to go out and buy one. I'm telling you the honest truth. If you don't pay some big money, this is some of the stuff you're gonna open this up. That's what you're gonna see. That's if they even give you the bottom panel. See, that's when you buy a bunch of junkers. You get the parts that the other radios are missing. Even like these covers. Now, normally I bang that dent out. See that dent? I bang that out. Very easy. You lay this down on the workbench. And you got to make sure it's on a board because these are sitting up higher. And you lay it down there and you put a board in there and then you hit the board and drive that down and straighten it out. But now I have, when you buy a couple radios, now you got one that's basically pristine. So why bother with that? But I have radios that were in shipping, they got bent, and I had to bang out the dents, and I got them pretty good. The antenna terminal gets whacked off, and it just never ends with eDumpster. You get a good deal and then the guy don't ship it right. It's just one thing after another. But I wanted to show you, what's inside these things, and when they rewire this, you have to take these pots up and out in order to rewire the filaments so they'll work at 12 volts instead of 24. And that's when you get the radio back. If they left these in, you have to take these out to rewire it back go from 12 to 24 or 28. Okay, it's 28, 24 within that range to heat the filaments. But and these guys did it. Instead of using a 24 volt transformer to heat the filaments, they went with what the manual told them. And that's why you'll see a few people. If you read articles, go around, one or two people mentioned how bad those conversion manuals are. They got you busy. See, you're gutting all the stuff that you could have left it in there, and you'd be done sooner. But they didn't do that. And just for the fact that they give you diagrams on how to wire these filaments so they're all in parallel. There's 3 strings of two 12 volt tubes in series. There's 3 series strings that are wired in parallel. And they show you how to make it all parallel so it's all 12 volts. And if you get that far, okay, and that's what they're doing to you. They're keeping you busy. And then you get the radio, and then years later, when you go to sell it, it's not original. You bodged it. You made it so nobody wants it. It's a parts radio. And there's so many of these. That's why when I saw 3 of them, I looked at the pictures and I said, they're not that bad shape. Yeah, they took pictures of what they wanted to take pictures. These guys are really smart. They're smarter than I am when it comes to being deceiving. Okay? And that's what they are. Yes, they are smarter than me. I looked at the pictures and still didn't see some of the stuff they did. Okay? And even like when that power supply was sitting on the back of that chopped out chassis, you can't see that in the picture. I think that's it.